Dell, tell the people the truth. We were the cool kids in school. We were never the outcast. Am I right?
Yes, we were the cool kids of our clique of two, and we would not let anybody else in the school in. That's how exclusive we were.
Basically like the Derry Girls today on Pilot Pass. Yay, Pilot Pass. Thank you, everybody. We're coming to our luau. Is that what we're doing today? Our luau?
Karis loves the theme song, by the way. She wants to know what the name of that is because she wants to put it on her
it's
phone.
Secret. I can't tell you. It's secret. But what I can tell you is I am the co-host of this little podcast that we're doing. My name is Matthew Pizana. Alongside me, I have my co-host, as always, Delbert. I don't have anything to put right here, so I'm just going to keep talking until I get to your last name, Pullen.
That's right. That's what they used to call me in school. I don't have anything to put right here, so I'm just going to keep talking until I have his last name.
Do you know how long that nameplate must be?
It's a good thing I never played sports because my number would have been so tiny down at the bottom.
That would have been great. As a treat for everybody today, we brought a third co-host along for the ride. I guess he'd be the tri-host. His name is Alex Gaskin. He is a writer, a comedian, and a podcast host. His podcast, called Double Double Feature Feature, is a podcast that gives you a double feature of movie discussion. Past episodes include combos like Romeo and Juliet, mashed up with Romeo Must Die, and Dazed and Confused alongside Superbad, among others. So I say, Alex, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me on. This is exciting. I'm looking forward to getting a break from talking about movies to talk about television.
We are not as high-minded as the Double Double Feature show is, but I think we can bring a little levity to the show that we're doing today. Like I said, Derry Girls is our show for Pilot Pass today. It's a show on Netflix. Del, will you tell the people what Derry Girls is all about?
Yes, let me give a synopsis. So I sat down, popped it on. It's a show on Netflix, and it begins with the girls sitting in choir and a nun telling them that there's going to be a trip to France. And then I went, wait a minute, this seems like we're right in the middle of a show. So I hit back, and I'd started on episode 2 because someone in my house already started episode 1. So I was like, and here's the thing is I asked, nobody's watched episode 1. So I can't figure out what happened. So I backed out, went back to episode 1, and Derry Girls is basically about 4 girls who go to I guess a Catholic school in Ireland, Northern Ireland. This is during the time of the Irish Troubles, towards the end of it in the mid-90s, roughly. If you don't know, the Irish Troubles ended officially in 1998. So this is just towards the end of that. The main girls are Erin. She's the main blonde who it kind of centers around. The show opens with her diary being read in a voiceover.
Poor girl.
Which we'll talk about in a minute. Yeah, a second. She has Oria. I'm not sure how to say
Orla.
his name. Orla. Well, I wrote that. Boy, my penmanship is so bad I can't get to it. So Orla is Erin's cousin, and she's a bit spacey, kind of dafty type character. Claire is she's fasting throughout the entire episode. She's the very kind of sweet, loving, maybe motherly, timid friend. Frumpy. She reminded me a lot of the actress. I can't think of her name. What's her name?
Yep, that lady
from Bridesmaids. Anyway, and then of course there's Michelle. She's the group badass and the rebel. And then is it Orla? You said? Because I'm gonna have to rewrite this real fast.
Yes.
Okay, Orla. Good God, I missed that. She has a relative in town named James, who is a boy who will be attending the girls' school.
Sorry, got to jump in. Michelle is the one with the cousin.
Oh, that's Michelle. Oh, you're right. I'm sorry.
See, that's why we have Alex on the show today.
That is
correct our mistake.
Yeah. That's what the people love about me is that I am very pedantic.
So, and James is a half Englishman who is having his mother moved back to Ireland, but because he's English, if you know anything about what's going on politically in these times, the English are not favored. So he is not sent to the boys' school for fear that he'll be beat up. He is sent to the girls' school, where I'm convinced he'll be beat up.
He's going to be beaten up. Yeah. Sure.
Yeah.
Alex, you brought this show to us today, so I want to start with you and just kind of ask, how were you introduced to this show? How did this come into your life? That kind of thing.
Okay. I'm trying to remember exactly when I watched it for the first time. I want to say maybe 2019, pre-pandemic. It's just one of those that, like, you know how Twitter just kind of like starts like throwing recommendations at you, just like rocks at your window, and you just start to, it's like, okay, I've seen enough. I got to know why everybody keeps telling me to watch this show. So got my wife to watch it with me. Thought the first episode was fantastic. Breeze through the entire series, because right now it's technically still an ongoing show. The third season will happen. They're just kind of stuck because of COVID. Unfortunately,
COVID. I'm gonna do that
so
like
it's
20 times today. COVID.
yeah.
A lot of Hogan's
so
heroes in my life. Sorry.
we will get a third. The third season is going to happen. I don't think it's even been filmed yet, but the first two seasons just very, very funny stuff. Had a blast with it. I knew pretty much nothing about the Troubles beyond that they happened in like the rough timeline. So it was kind of interesting to get a little bit of that history filled in, but on a very provincial scale. And just once I finished it, I was like, okay, I have to be one of those people who tells other people to watch this show now. That's just what's going to happen. And it's funny because Matt, you reached out to me like, I want to say like my third, fourth, like complete series rewatch. And you were just like, hey, is there a show that you would want to like talk about the pilot? And I was like, well, as a matter of fact, I can talk about this one because I just revisited it and it's just terrific.
It is part of your life. Dell, you were a little surprised by this show. What were your first inclinations once you saw we were doing it this week?
I remember where I was when I first heard about this show.
Yes.
You sent me an email saying we're doing a Pilot Pass episode on it. And I went, okay.
So were you in
so
bed
I had to
or
look up
toilet?
Derry Girls. I was at the toilet. No, I was actually sitting at this very computer. And so I pulled up Derry Girls and I went, oh no, I don't think I'm going to enjoy this at all. It's a girl show. It's obviously political. It's during the Irish Troubles. It's about a Catholic school. Oh, I'm just not going to enjoy this. So I decided while I had the time, I went to go read a couple of synopses or other reviews of the show. And I was telling Matt earlier that I read through two full reviews, synopses, kind of breakdowns of the show. And I got to the end and I was like, oh, this is going to be a chore to get through. I was assuming it was an hour long, And then I get to the end of the second one that goes, and what an enjoyable, short, breezy 30-minute comedy. And I went, oh, wait, well, that totally changes everything I think about the show. And within the first scene, I was like, oh man, I'm hooked. When I guess we should say that it opened, like I said, it opens with her on the, her diary being read in voiceover, which Matt and I have talked a lot of shows that we like, Doogie Howser, Mr. Belvedere, have that Moesha, have the trope of the diary, as the bookcasing the show and, or bookending the show. And this had a nice trope because she, it's showing Derry or Londonderry, depending on, your feelings about the Troubles at the time. But it slowly zooms in on Erin's house. You see she's sleeping in bed through the voiceover, how she feels about living in Derry, how she doesn't feel like she has a place. Derry's a very small town. There's, everybody knows everybody knows your stuff. And then she opens her eyes and it pans over and her cousin is reading her own diary out loud. So I like that this trope is subverted. You have the diary trope of intro and outro in the show is subverted, and it turns out it's diegetic being read in scene to their horror. So that was right then. I was like, oh, well, we're already a little meta into it. We're having some fun with concepts. I was sold. And then the first scene with the family where everybody's just bastards was great too.
I was gonna say, like, what really hooked me, I think, from the beginning is that, like, the setup does, like, I knew it was a comedy going in, so I wasn't like, I was prepared for that, but I was thinking, okay, like, it's political, it's going to be like very character driven, it's going to be very dry, and I was like, I'm cool with that, I'm looking forward to that. But the silliness of it is what really I did not expect, because you think, okay, they're talking about the Troubles, this is probably going to be like a biographical kind of a grounded thing, and then it's like, no,
Chernobyl
it's like
too.
Yeah, there's like, you got like the diary gag, you've got the father-in-law who has this insane vendetta that he does not let go. So it's just like, it's like, okay, it's like all these characters are like starting like way up here, and I was expecting
the sister
like
of the mother who's just a complete moron and oblivious to everything. And one thing I loved about how the Troubles were presented, I was reading that apparently this show is really highly regarded in Ireland and England. It's got like a 97% approval rating, and everybody really seems to like how they handled troubles because, as one place put it, like during the London bombings of World War II, eventually you just kind of got over it. You got used to that fact that was happening every day, and people still went out and bought groceries. And this show very much makes it like, yeah, they're about the whole beginning of the show is there's, rebels are about to blow up the bridge in Derry, and nobody cares about the loss of life or infrastructure. The mom is more worried that the girls won't go to school because she spent all summer with them, and she can't bear to stand another day with her daughter. So she wants to send them off to school. So everyone is just so selfish and self-centered. And I definitely love that everybody is a terrible person. Matt, maybe we can talk about how this rolls into the shows with terrible people.
Oh, for sure. I did love that. Traffic was everybody's biggest concern. Who cares about the bridge? I don't want to sit in traffic. We have talked about some shows before with a bunch of bastards in it, but I wanted to talk a little bit more about shows that might relate to this. Now, I'm curious, Alex, are you a foreign comedy show like this fan, or is this just a one-off? How are you with foreign comedies?
I mean, this is not technically like a British sitcom since it is North Ireland, but I've seen enough like British sitcoms to kind of be familiar with the short seasons and then the silliness.
It is a hat trick production, which is the same company that I believe did Father Ted. They do a lot of Irish. They work with Lan Gryman, IT Crowd, another Irish writer. So Hat Trick is known for Irish comedies.
Yeah. So I wasn't it's not like my wheelhouse or anything, but I was familiar enough going in. So
one of the shows that I think relates a lot to this, at least as far as I'm concerned, is the In-Betweeners, which was a British show about a bunch of boys who are very much outcast in their school as well. And it's their misadventures and whatnot. They were a little bit like the characters from Superbad, I would say, in that show. Yeah. But I think that these kind of shows relate a lot to each other in that way.
Yeah, it's interesting because you guys mentioned like the whole like kind of the self-involved, like the selfishness, and it's like it's interesting because like I don't read any of these people as like outright bad. It's just like they've adjusted to their circumstances. Everybody's got like their immediate concerns. Is kind of just what this is like. What we see is like everybody has what they're chasing that's right in front of them, and it's like sometimes the world gets in the way, sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes and sometimes that's you understand that's a healthy thing. I don't know. I know we're sticking to just talking about the pilot. Have either of you watched like further on?
I started the second one. I mean, I certainly enjoyed it. And I plan on watching the rest of the series probably today. But in the pilot, that's the thing is I don't think kind of like I wrote some shows that are like this: Seinfeld, Friends, The League, Always Sunny, Shameless, where they're bad people. And or at least let's say they're not the most esteemed people that we would look to in society to kind of model ourselves after. But you're right, they're not like evil people. I would say maybe like The League comes close to being intentionally dickishness. Everybody else kind of seems to just be bad people, not bad people, but by happenstance they're just self-absorbed and they're not concerned with really other people. And so to me they come across as I guess bad people, but really they're just selfish and self-absorbed people.
That was a Friends example from a few weeks ago. I mean, we watched that pilot and it was just like, these people are just so involved that nothing else matters. And they've come off as pretty prickly and not great people. Whereas these characters are just, I mean, it may help that they're kids. That's certainly something, but
I mean, kids are a little bit like self-centered just by default. Like they just can't help it.
They get a pass. Plus they're learning it from their parents. I think that helped putting that scene at the very beginning because you see how the parents interact, their interactions. And so since you get to see the home life first, when you see how they interact as friends, you automatically kind of go, oh, well, we see what their life is like. We see what their town is going through, kind of a post-war era. The family's real disjointed and they don't seem like there's a lot of love between them. And so I think you immediately are kind of even happy that these people have a group of friends that they can relate to, and you're in that journey with them, even though they are self-centered. At least they seem to have their own clique that they care about, because before that you haven't seen that in the show in the first 5 minutes.
Right. So let's deep dive into this first episode, shall we? I think that we all seem to enjoy it, so I'm going to ask this question to Alex first. Did you have a favorite moment, a favorite line, a favorite character from this pilot episode?
I think the moment that really stands out to me is the culmination of their time in detention. I don't know if we want to like break down too many specifics just yet, but it's just the escalation. I mean, it's classic comedy. I mean, it's like the scene would be like, not out of place in like the Marx Brothers high school years, just for like how like crazy it gets and just like how it just keeps building until we just have like just stealing from a dead nun while a boy is peeing in a garbage can.
Yep.
Now, see, the nun stole first. I got to be on. I got to be
Oh
on
well,
the
yeah,
side on
but
this one.
like when the parent and other nun comes in, it's like that's what they're seeing.
Yeah.
It's just like
Yeah.
lifting something off of a nun's corpse while another boy is just like urinating into the trash. It's just like the perfect, like, I feel like that's just such a great representation for what you're going to get from this series, where it's just like, as much as it's grounded in like a real conflict and a real world concern, it's like, these are still teenagers. They still have their petty hangups. Everyone is just trying to get through the day. Like, it's almost like, it feels weird to call it self-centered in this circumstance. Cause it's like, when the friends from Friends are being selfish, they're just living very comfortable lives and wanting a little bit more. Whereas this is like, I would rather not constantly think about the fact that we're in a kind of a simmering war. Like way more sympathetic,
I was just gonna say, I like that you said Marx Brothers, because there were absolutely times where the scene in that last shot where he's peeing into the bucket, one girl's got a leg out the window, one girl's around the nun. That freeze shot of everything reminded me of, I think it's Night at the Opera, the Marx Brothers movie, where there's the cabin scene where everybody keeps coming in, and it had that sense of like the visual, it was just iconic visually, of like everybody had a position that they were in that was comedically funny. So there's the guy in the back, fixing the pipe. There's the lady serving the lunch. There's, Harpo and Chico trying to move over the things. And it was just visually funny to just look at that picture without even needing any kind of, pre-story to it. And there were a lot of points. I think you're right. Marx Brothers, really, there were times now that I think, it had a lot of that playful zaniness of things coming in and out of a scene. When they were sitting in front of the principal, which that had my favorite line in it, that very much felt like a Marx Brothers movie of Chico and Groucho going back and forth. It was just a group of girls as Groucho, instead of one guy. And that's an interesting thing that you said. Yeah, it really does feel like a Marx Brothers movie.
Like another
through girls.
Yeah, another comparison I'd make is like, we've been rewatching episodes of I Love Lucy in the mornings, and it's just like revisiting that. It's like, man, I more so now, like I think than before. Like I really appreciate like the physical comedy.
Yeah,
they would go into these classic sitcoms, because we've kind of gotten to a very like dialogue, like quippy based humor, which can work. I mean, it can be great. It can yield great stuff. This show throws like, it has like it has the dialogue, it has the the heavy backstory that you get from a lot of like shows nowadays, but then it also just has like that like timeless physical commitment, which I really appreciate.
Yeah, and oddly enough, I Love Lucy, she said that the single influence when making the show was to make a half-hour-long Marx Brothers movie into a sitcom. That was her goal. In fact, she even redoes they do the Harpo, where Groucho and Harpo and Duck Soup do the mirror scene together. They put that in an I Love Lucy episode where Harpo was a guest star on the show. And she was very forward about the fact that like, that's what I want to do on the small screen. And this does have that same flair. And I do like the physical. You're right. There's not a lot of shows. I guess Always Sunny sometimes does the physical zaniness.
Yeah, Arrested Development too could do it.
Oh my gosh, yes, Arrested
definitely.
Development. You're right. That would be a perfect one to go with. Another great show of just self-centered, obnoxious people. Maybe I'm starting to find that this may be my favorite type of show.
It could be,
because every time I watch a show with just narcissistic a-holes, that's maybe I feel better about myself, or maybe I see myself in them. I don't know which it is, but I think that's becoming my new favorite type of show. It's very farcical. That's too. It's also playful. There was so much zaniness and going in and out of the scene a lot of times. I really appreciated that. Then of course the repetitive jokes. The guy's got to pee the entire episode.
The way that builds up and then just pays off is just.
There you go. That's the perfect spot, because just like the great Vincent Gallo had to pee in Buffalo 66. There's no better bit than when a man has to pee, and that makes me laugh every time.
Well, this had a great classic 3-act structure for comedy. So there was the introduction of everybody and the initial conundrum. The second act started to just kind of build on everything. The guy can't pee. Is she going to continue her fasting? Each person had an issue in the group separately that was working as separate storylines, even though they're all together. And then act 3, when they're in the detention room, and the fallout from that is all of the problems happening at the same time in the same room at the same moment. So the urination gets released. She goes to take back her makeup. The girl wants to go on a date with the boys, so she's going out the window. She breaks her fast. I mean, that is great comedic trope where you build tension for 2 acts for the release, but to put all of them together at the same time, so everybody's just as guilty as everyone else. It's not like a slow payoff where each person falls by the wayside. Everybody at the same moment was guilty of giving into their pleasures or their needs. And of course, a nun dies at the same time.
Yep.
That's just in any show that rips on dogmatic religions of any type, I'm always going to enjoy that. And good comedy should always punch up. And there's nothing higher up than religions,
God.
generally. Well, yeah, and God. So if you're going to punch up in comedy, that's I guess that's who you want to take a swing at.
Yeah, it's interesting you mentioned that, like the addition of the nun, because you're right, because like so many of these things are like paying off earlier bits. But I think what puts that scene over the top is like you haven't been set up for the nun dying.
Right.
It seems totally out of bounds. And all of a sudden you're just like, oh, like here I am like thinking I'm getting everything that I've been like building towards. And it's like on top of that, it's just that extra push.
I like that because it's the inciting incident of Act 3, while everything else in the room is the culmination of the first 2 acts. So it's not exactly like a tag or an epilogue, but it does give you a continuation where a lot of shows would have ended with the girl stuffing her face. That shot where he's peeing and one leg's out the window and she's got the food in her face, that could have easily been the last shot, and then would have cut to her writing in her diary. But instead, with the dead nun, you get a whole 3rd act that continues the fallout from all their that day's actions and thoughts. And I really like that. If I could say my favorite line, Matt, you were asking earlier about this, is when they're in the nurse's office and I think Michelle cusses, and what is it? Orla goes, you shouldn't curse so much, because whenever you curse, that makes Jesus cry and his tears come down as rain. And the principal goes, how old are you now? She goes, 15. She goes, you might think about wising up. I just she didn't correct her. She didn't explain to her what was wrong. She didn't even say you're an idiot, and she didn't say you need to get smart. She just said you might think about, wisen up. And I love that backhanded, insult to a 15-year-old girl about how stupid and ditzy she is.
Yeah. Oh, Sister Michael.
And the nuns were great. I love the nuns who were just raging. Now, if you want to talk about a-holes, it seems like, especially the head nun, or the mother superior, I guess. I don't know what they call it in actual school, but the principal.
I think she's considered the headmistress.
Okay, the headmistress, head nun. Mistress, that's salacious.
Alex, is the girl that they pick on but stands up for herself with the pigtails, does she keep showing up in the show? Is she part of it?
No, I don't think she didn't really become like a regular part. She's just kind of like a fun, but you get a lot of like fun characters who kind of appear throughout the series. So you don't end up like missing her too much, but for what she does, it's a lot of fun.
Does her sister come back? The bigger?
No, I don't recall anything like significant with the sister coming back. So that's kind of this does have like, again, like part of its old school quality is that like episodes can feel pretty distinct from each other. So it's their continuity exists. These characters like relationships build on each other, but you can go into an episode and it's kind of like not a hard reset, but like a new beginning and ending,
So it's still, even though there's an arc for the whole kind of season, I assume, it's still definitely episodic, or at least that's kind of how I got the feel, even jumping into the second. Like, we're not watching The West Wing, where if you're missing out, earlier, you're not going to step, you can just step right in and keep going with the jokes. And at most, the story will basically, you'll kind of have to make assumptions like, oh, I assume in the past episode or a couple of episodes this happened to put them here. Now let's just keep going on with the comedy.
How
Yeah.
difficult is it to get American audiences to watch foreign shows? I think I see so many of these good shows that are as well written or more well written than a lot of American shows. We've watched that terrible show Walker, so we know how bad shows are written. So is that an obstacle, do you think, anymore, or are people okay with that? I mean, it's on Netflix, so is it? Oh, it's on Netflix, so it's okay. I just wonder if American audience can, like my ear seems a little behind whenever I'm listening to some of the accents. And I think that a lot of people won't even try to do that. Or am I just making this up, Alex?
Well, I have honestly, I have no idea how Netflix has like affected people's receptiveness to foreign projects. This is definitely a show that I would be like, I absolutely recommend it. Put on the subtitles. Just put on, like, don't be a hero. Just have the subtitles on. Like, unless you are from North Ireland and like
Right.
also lived through the Troubles, you might need a little assistance.
I would say that because one of my favorite Irish shows is a show called Father Ted by Graham Lyman, same guy did IT Crowd, and Black Books, which is about an Irish bookstore. And I love those. But here's the thing is, back when in the early 2000s, around 2010, you could only see those by tuning into PBS, before you could really, or you had to already have heard about that from a friend and go actively like seek out the DVDs of those shows. Where something like Netflix, they can at least pop it up and put a 30-second ad in front of you to give you a taste for the show. I mean, the IT Crowd had already been going for a while before it got put on Netflix, and Netflix is when IT Crowd, kind of blew up because people just happened to see it there and would give it a shot. Whereas before, I think you had to seek out these kind of things. If you wanted to watch Blackadder, Monty Python, you had to know to go to PBS or go get the DVD or been exposed to it by like your parents. It was more of a cult thing, I think. I would say Netflix at least bypasses that to make it more accessible. I mean, when you load up Netflix, it's going to show, the Carlos Mencia special, Derry Girls, Arrested Development. And when you see it in line with all these other things that you're familiar with, it kind of gives it a credibility that you wouldn't normally be there. It's not something to be sought out and cultish. On the other hand, that's ideally, I like cult shows because when something's not followed as well, like Always Sunny at the beginning, you get to do more. You get to have your own voice, your own say. And when shows become too big, like the Cosby Show and stuff like that, or Friends,
You've
got
such
to
a weird
pander.
connections today. The Cosby Show?
I just meant that it was accepted,
I gotcha.
in America as like the family show.
Yeah.
Friends was just accepted, but then you get more, it's watered down. It's generic. We talked about how, Friends and Seinfeld are almost the same show. It's a bunch of people and friends running around who the main show is the relationship is friends only in New York. But we talked about how Seinfeld took more risks, definitely had more Jewish humor, was a little more, beholden to classic, humor of stuff like the Marx Brothers and Monty Python, where Friends was very broad, very watered down, but also Friends was watched by more people overall. But Seinfeld, I think, holds up better. And of course, had the bigger finale at the end. But I like the fact shows like Derry because they get to have their own voice, and I hope that being on Netflix doesn't water it down, with more and more people watching. I hope they don't feel like they have to pander to American audiences. I like watching shows where I'm not the target audience because I get to see what's interesting to other people. The show is made to be funny to Irish people, most likely, and English people who knew about the Troubles. And I'm sure there's a lot of jokes I didn't get in this pilot that were very small. But the more I watch it, the more I'm going to get into that and find out about it and appreciate that type of humor and those type of jokes.
Mm-hmm.
That sounds like 2 yeses for this show. I'm going to put a cherry on top and say that's 3 yeses for Derry Girls. I really enjoyed this show. I'm really appreciative to Alex for giving this to us because I don't think I would have found this otherwise. And
I don't either. I really say thank you because this is a real treat. I'm really, really looking forward to finishing this.
Yeah, I am going to bug both of you to hear like your responses to the full series.
Absolutely. Yeah. I would happily give that to you. That has been an episode of Pilot Pass. That was Derry Girls. Alex, will you tell the people where to find you online if they'd like to do that?
Yeah, sure. You can find me. You can find me personally on Twitter and Letterboxd at Alex_J_Gaskin. You can find my podcast Double Feature on Apple Podcasts. I think we're still on Spotify. You can also find our official Double feature Twitter at DDFF Pod.
Can I be nosy and ask, is there any episodes that you are looking forward to coming up?
We are actually kind of going into a strategic season break. We're trying to think of some new ways to approach episodes and, kind of special content.
Nice.
The last episode we did a guest recommended episode, which is a lot of fun. We did Wag the Dog, and I'm totally blanking on the other film, which is a shame because Ace in the Hole, which I loved. I had never seen.
Yes.
So
wait, what is that? Because I've never even heard of that.
Ace in the Hole, Kurt Douglas. He's a newspaper reporter in Albuquerque. And he's sent out to cover a story that may or not really be a story, but he's going to make his name on it. And it is glorious. And I say, everybody go watch that right now.
Oh, yeah. It's a fantastic film. It's Billy Wilder, one of his best.
Oh, actually, really?
Yeah. So it got me so hyped that I was like, you know what? I got to cross a big film off my to watch list. Right after that, for myself, I watched Some Like It Hot to finally complete, so his I think Stalag 17. I'm probably mispronouncing that title, but that's the last.
Oh, Stalag 17.
Yes,
the original Hogan's Heroes.
I love that. Okay.
Yeah, that's the last big Billy Wilder thing that I need to watch. So now I'm just So that's coming out soon. And then we're gonna take a short break, trying to do some fun things to do a second season. So yeah. In the meantime, tons of fun episodes in the backstory in the archives already. I've talked about some of my favorite films in there, and just kind of listen to all of them, frankly. If you're listening to this, finish this episode, catch up if you've missed some old episodes of Pilot Pass, and then literally listen to every single episode of Double feature. Give us a 5-star review. Leave us money. We don't have a Venmo or anything, but if you just put envelopes with money just around Los Angeles, I'm sure I'll find them.
Alex will get in. Like Alex said, you can send recommendations to them. So send some messages to them. Let them know that you're out there and what you want to watch or what you want them to watch. Del, how about us? How can you find us on the World Wide Web?
Well, you can just search aimlessly on Bing. Get to about page 17 and then just start randomly clicking around on anything blue with a line underneath it.
Good news, we're on page 15 now. So
nice. Sweet. We're making it in this world. If you like brevity, you might be interested in a thing called a quick URL, and that would be pilotpasspod.com. From there, you can jump to all of our social media. Why am I pluralizing in plural? I gotta go see my therapist. Anyway, so pilotpasspod.com. You can go to all of our social mediums. I believe we have a Facebook, an Instagram, Twitter. If you want to find me personally on Twitter with my inane ramblings, I'm just at Del Pullen. Matt, if he feels like giving his out, I don't know how secretive he is.
I'm Old Man Pizana on the Instagrams.
That would be 100% correct.
And I think I'm that as well.
But if you do have any suggestions for the show, definitely hit us up. We certainly always are looking for new shows like Derry Girls that we're excited to review. One of the other things is we are available on YouTube. Right now, it's just a static picture, but if you don't have any other way to listen to us at work, hey, check us out on YouTube. We're trying to hit 100 subscribers right now, just so we can get a specialized URL and feel very special about ourselves and tell our moms that we're finally accomplishing something in this world.
And my mom other still than that, won't listen.
Yeah, my mom keeps asking which channel she needs to put it on to watch the video, and I'm like, it's not how podcasts work. So it's not going to happen. But on the other hand, I can say words like motherfucker, and my mom will never ever know.
No, she will not. Again, this has been Pilot Pass. Thank you, Alex, for coming on the show.
Hey, absolutely, I had a great time.
Thanks, man. And thanks again for the recommendation. It's a great show.
Yes.
Yeah, good.
You are approved to come back on the show because you made a good recommendation.
Excellent. That's what I wanted to hear.
Perfect. Until next time, Del, we are
slowly exiting the show.